If any of you have any point for clarification, you can just ask in this class. Otherwise, we will continue the discussion. Well, now we come to the 11th verse. We found in the 11th verse, Gaudapada is trying to put in juxtaposition the idea of creation of two ancient Indian philosophical systems. One is the school of Sankhyas, which, as I said, they believe in evolution. They believe the entire creation is nothing but an evolute of one of the two absolute entities, that is Prakriti or Pradhanam. That's one view. But they hold the view that all the evolutes, the entire universe is already pre-existing in the cause, in an involved state. Just as a tree could be said to pre-exist inside a seed. So, effect is nothing but cause itself evolving into another form. But it is a real change. And effect becomes entirely different from cause when cause evolves into effect. The other view is the effect does not pre-exist in cause. This view is held by two ancient schools of philosophy, the school of logicians and the school of atomists, Nyayikas and Vaisheshikas. Now, Gaudapada puts these two views in juxtaposition to prove that each of these two views is flawed, not logically tenable, because each school contradicts the other one. Therefore, both stand revealed, both stand exploded. That's the idea behind. So indirectly, they are indicating the views of Advaitins. Now, I want to explain this in connection with our understanding of universe, human beings, and God. Then only we will understand, because we are not focusing on the different schools of Indian philosophy. We are focusing on the philosophy of non-dualism. So something has to be said in connection, to relate this view with our understanding of God, life, world, universe, etc. Advaitins, as I said earlier, believe that every being in this world is, by its very nature, the same as the Supreme Consciousness or Atman. In every living being, that all-pervading reality is present. In every living being. So Vivekananda defines religion as the manifestation of divinity already in man. So this manifestation is already there within. It has to manifest through unselfishness, through the practice of certain virtues like unselfishness, purity, contemplation, compassion, and so on. Inner harmony, peace, and so on. If we practice these virtues, we will find that we evolve our understanding of our own personality and also our understanding of the absolute reality and our understanding of universe, all these will evolve. Finally, we find that what we are searching for actually resides within ourselves. This is the Advaitin's view. That means the manifestation of divinity already in all of us. This is the essence of religion. This is the essence of spirituality. So God or the divine reality is not something that stands outside of us. It is already there within us. We are not getting a new knowledge. We are not gaining anything new when we realize God. We are only understanding our own true divine nature. So what we call this human body, this mind, which is full of problems. Human body is certainly not perfect. Mind also is not perfect. So all these changing phenomena are relative. They belong to the relative plane. Beyond and behind all this, there is the Atman which is present in all of us. And that Atman is all-pervading, omnipresent and divine. This should manifest. Now, if this divine consciousness, which is the ultimate cause, was different from from these things, from what we have, different from our true nature, then we won't be able to realize this divine nature within all of us. Spirituality or God or religion is not a thing that we seek outside of us. It is something that we realize within all of us because it is inherent in all of us. This is the idea behind. As I give the example, when we realize I am not this body, I am not this mind, I am not this changing phenomena, I am something beyond, because mind worries, mind gets anxious, mind becomes happy, unhappy, mind is wavering. That mind cannot be in absolute reality. Body also falls sick, body collapses, so body cannot be. Intellect also, when you get age, when people get old, their intellect fails them. So body, mind, intellect, or the energy also leaves when we die. So there is something behind all this. That is the Atman within. So when we realize God, when we become pure, when we realize, when you reach our spiritual destination, we are not actually going from one place to another place. We are not obtaining or attaining anything. We are only coming back to our source. We are actually coming back to our own true nature. It is a kind of spiritual homeward journey. All spiritual exercises are nothing but an attempt to return to the source. That means the source is within us all. And everything else other than Atman is alien and foreign. When we go beyond all this, then we realize the inner reality within. So here you find whatever we realize is already within. It doesn't come from outside. And then we cannot believe that the Atman evolves into this body. If Atman is omnipresent, is immanent, the eternal reality, how can that Atman, the supreme consciousness, evolve into something else? Anything which evolves undergoes change. So there is no evolution, there is no change. The so-called change or evolution is only apparent. The moment we can convince ourselves that we are that all-pervading reality, the supreme consciousness, the ever blissful reality, that which goes beyond this body, mind, and all the vagaries and all the problems, anxieties, diseases which are associated with body, the psychophysical mechanism. The moment we realize that, our own understanding of our own true nature changes. And such people are called in Vedanta Jivan Muktas. And Vedanta says that this realization is possible while living in this world. In fact, that's one of the unique contribution of Shankaracharya's interpretation of Vedanta. In fact, these ideas are not found in the Gaudapada's original work. Shankaracharya, while interpreting all these verses, will project these fundamental doctrines. And one of his most original doctrine, Vedanta, is you can be perfect, you can go beyond all the limitations, you can enjoy, you can experience your identity with the supreme all-pervading consciousness. Even while living in this world, even while living in this body, with all its limitations. Because the moment we realize, well, this body is a shell, an outer shell, which comes and goes. So it is not eternal. This mind is also not eternal. But this mind may act as a medium for the function of Atman in the empirical world. But Atman itself is beyond all this. Just as a pot filled with water reflects the sun that is blazing above. The sun is not at all affected by the reflection seen in the water. Or the sun is not at all affected by the reflection that you see on a mirror. Similarly, those who reach this highest spiritual experience can live in this world and watch this whole funny human drama of life as a spectator watching the drama going on, being played out on the stage. This is the state of what is called Jivan Mukta. The meaning of the word is you are liberated even while living in this world. So it is not a reward that you get after death. It is not a reward that you get after death. It is not something for which you have to wait till this body collapses, till the body falls at the time of death. It is something that you can experience. That's why in the Gita, Krishna uses the word ihaiva tarjita sargo. Ihaiva means iha actually means here, now, in this world. That's a very, very striking, unique characteristic of Vedanta. Vedanta tells us that kingdom of God is, that's what I can equate, because when I interpret the experience of unity with Brahman to people with a strong Judeo-Christian religious tradition, sometimes if you put it this way, it comes very close to our understanding. The kingdom of God is not actually far away. Kingdom of God is already within all of us. And kingdom of God you can realize by living in this world. If we just change our mind and attitude a little. So that's why in the commentaries of Shankaracharya he says, Iha asmin loki. Here, now, adhuna means now, here in this world, one can realize the supreme truth. Now, this realization of our true nature, here, now, by living in this world, would not have been possible if you believe that the change is real. That's why great interpreters of Vedanta rejects the theory of evolution which is held by the Sankhyas, Ramanuja's philosophy and others, according to all non-Advaitic systems of philosophy, according to all non-dualistic systems of philosophy, according to all systems of philosophy other than Shankaracharya's philosophy, you have to wait for some time to get liberation. You have to wait. You may get grace of God. If you pray to God, He will listen to your prayers. But the ultimate liberation is not possible when we are here in this world, living in the body. But Shankaracharya says, you can. And in modern times, you can see the examples. Perhaps there are many examples. Maybe in 20th century, one of the many examples known in Western world is perhaps the example of Ramana Maharshi. Ramana Maharshi was not the only one. There have been quite a few. But Ramana Maharshi is perhaps one of the better known saints who had experienced this state of complete liberation and perfection while living in this world. He was also eating food like any of us. He also felt hungry. And he also sometimes, very rarely, got angry also. Very rarely. And he was staying in a temple, an ashrama grew around him, and people were living. All kinds of people from all over the world came to meet him. But you can see his pictures, some of you must have seen, he seems to be staring at something. He was not staring at anything. He was actually meditating upon his own true nature. Now, this is the uniqueness of Vedanta. So Vedanta believes that liberation or perfection in spiritual life is possible. Even when you are working in this world, when you are working in a government office, you are going for shopping, you are traveling, even you may have to do all these things. Still liberation is possible. But the point is, the difference between an ordinary person who engages in all these activities and a spiritually liberated person is simple. A spiritually liberated person looks upon himself and the whole phenomenon of life going on in this world as a drama that is being played out on the stage, and they are just witnesses. They look upon themselves and their own life as a drama. This complete non-attachment is one basic difference between those who are liberated by living in this world and people who have not reached that stage of spiritual liberation. That's why. So, Gaudapada's philosophy has got one relevance. If perfection were not already there within us, if we were not already Atman, we would not have been able to reach this level of perfection and spiritual liberation while living in this world. Others also believe that Atman is there, that everything is pre-existing in Atman, but they also believe, especially those who believe the doctrine of evolution, it's called Parinamavada, the doctrine of evolution. This theory is held by two prominent schools of ancient Indian philosophy. One is Sankhya, that's very ancient. Then later school, one was Ramanuja's school of philosophy. Visishta Advaita, Ramanuja's school of philosophy. They believe that God is the Brahman. And that God evolves into all living beings in the world. And also the whole phenomenal empirical universe. Empirical universe is devoid of consciousness. All living beings are endowed with consciousness. And Atman, or their God with names and forms and attributes, evolves into both these. Ishvara, they call it. The God evolves into Jagat, the universe, and all the living beings, jivas. But Vedantins believe there is no such real change or evolution. The change or the evolution is only to be explained in terms of the relationship between a rope and the snake idea that you impose upon the rope, because you are not able to recognize the rope due to lack of enough light. That's all. When you bring light, you find it is really rope. So the rope doesn't really become the snake. Snake idea is by mistake imposed upon the rope when there is not enough light. When you bring light, this snake idea vanishes. That's all. So now we come to the 12th verse. Karanat yadi ananyatvam ata karyamajam yati jyayamanathi vai karyat karanam te katham dhruvam. Karanat ananyatvam yati ataha karyam ajam yati jyayamanat karyat hivai karanam te katham dhruvam. This is the prose order. I shall explain this. The idea is this. Now, there are some people who believe that the effect is non-different from cause. And they also believe the cause is unborn, eternal, changeless. At the same time, they believe that an effect is non-different from cause. So how can an effect which takes birth from cause be called unborn? They argue, this is the view, this idea is projected to show the ridiculousness of the argument of the doctrine of evolution. The doctrine of evolution says that the effect pre-exists in cause. The cause is unborn, eternal. At the same time, from cause, effect comes into existence. How can effect and cause be the same if, how can both be unborn if you argue that the effect is born from cause? It is like, as I said last time, Shankaracharya, the great commentator, says, it's like arguing to say that the cause is unborn, eternal, changeless, supreme, absolute reality. At the same time, to argue that something comes out of that cause. And at the same time, you also argue that cause and effect are of the same nature. That is the theory of evolutionists, Sankhyas and Ramanujayites. It's like arguing that you have only one hen, you cut it into two halves, one half you keep in the fridge, and the other half you eat it. You expect the piece that you have kept in the fridge to lay eggs the next day. So, either you have to argue that cause and effect are not the same, and you have to admit that the effect is not unborn, effect has some difference from the cause, then you can accept. Or you have to give up the theory that the cause is unborn or eternal. Then also you can admit. Because something which is unborn and eternal, then it cannot give birth to anything. No effect can come out of it. So here the Bhashyakara is trying to reveal the ridiculousness of the argument. In this way, the argument continues, and After that, there in the 13th verse, another argument is put forward. Ajadvai jayate yasya drishtantastasya nasti vai jadacha jayamanasya na vyavastha prasajyati. Now, that is it, the argument continues. The author says you cannot get a single illustration to show that something comes out of something which is unborn, which means it doesn't exist. See, when you say something unborn, you can say that, you can use that word unborn only in relation to two entities. One, the absolute eternal reality, that is unborn. Why? Because it can never take birth. Why? It always exists. Taking birth means coming into existence, which implies the transition from a state of non-existence to a state of existence. Atman, or consciousness, the supreme reality according to Vedanta, is unborn. The reason is, there was never a time when it did not exist. It always exists, it always existed, it will always exist. So it cannot take birth. Then there is something else which you can say it is unborn. What is that? Vedanta gives examples. Certain things which cannot even intellectually be conceived of. Vedanta gives example of the horn of a hare. Or, as I said last time, I gave an example, a child, by looking at the sky in the evening, when the sun is about to set in the west. There is brilliant light everywhere. As the child asks, and perhaps there is dark blue clouds moving, white clouds, and so on. A little child may ask his father, what is there above? There be many layered, colorful things could be seen or visualized by small children. So if such children will ask, if they ask the elders, what are these things? If the father says, well, these are all small towns, well-lit cities existing in the sky. It's called Gandharva Nagaram. In old Sanskrit textbooks, these illustrations were given. Gandharva Nagara means, a city inhabited by celestial beings which child imagines to exist above the clouds. Or the horns of a hare. Hare can never have horns. Sometimes Vedanta gives some other examples like children of barren women. Such examples Vedanta give in ancient books. Not only in Vedantic books, in the books of Mahayana Buddhists, also Shunyavada and Vijnanavada textbooks also you find such examples. Now we can say the city above the cloud is unborn. Why? Because it can never exist. So the state of being unborn of something which you can never even imagine as an intellectual idea is different from the state of being unborn in relation to the absolute reality, which is Atman, which is eternal, which is ever existing, and which can never go through the periods of transition like birth, existence, death, etc. It is unborn, therefore it is deathless. So this idea behind. So at two extremes you can use the same point, same example. Unborn means unborn in the sense eternal. Or the other sense is absolutely non-existent. That also is unborn. That's the idea behind. Now here, Gaudapada asks one question. How can anything be born which is from something which is unborn? There is no such examples. And not only that, if you believe that something takes birth from something which is really born, then that effect also will become a cause in relation to its effect. In Sanskrit, it's called anavastha dosha, like a chain, cause, effect. Again, the chain continues. Every cause is an effect in relation to its cause, and every effect is a cause in relation to its effect. Like this. Such examples you find in Aristotelian logic also. It is called anavastha dosha. A state of ad infinitum, that's Latin expression called ad infinitum. Means a state of never ending anywhere. In fact, if anybody gives an argument like this, for example, something is born out of something, and that effect which is born gives birth to another effect, and this continues, there is no end to that. That is a serious flaw in logic and also in dialectics, in metaphysics. So Gaudapada says, you cannot argue that something takes birth from something which is unborn. It is impossible. What is the unborn reality? You have to remember in Vedanta. Absolute non-existence also may be called unborn in the empirical sense. Anything which you cannot even imagine as existing, which cannot even be conceived of intellectually as an idea, which is absolute non-existence. The other one is the absolute reality, which we need not even call existence, because existence again is a word that you use in relation to something which exists in relation to its opposite state of non-existence. Atman is ever existing. So in the Vedanta there is a statement, it goes everywhere, it stays everywhere, it travels everywhere. There is no place where it is not present. Every living being is an expression of that divine reality. Okay, now like that it continues. Then I won't go, I'm skipping a few verses, because in these verses the same idea is discussed here. We will come to the 20th verse. Those who are interested, you can imagine. The 20th verse, it introduces an important method of illustration in Vedanta. It says, Bijangurakhyo drishtantaha sada sadhya samohisaha nahi sadhya samohetu siddho sadhya sayujyate. Now, there is an example given here. Bija-angura drishtanta it is called in Vedanta. Bija and Ankura. Bija means the seed. Angura means the small sprout which grows out of the seed. Or sometimes it can be stressed further. If somebody asks you the question, which comes first, the seed or the fruit? Without the seed, there cannot be tree. Without tree, there cannot be fruit. But without fruit, there cannot be seed. So who comes first? This, now, any argument in metaphysics or philosophy which looks like an attempt to explain what comes into existence first, is that any such argument is considered to be a serious flaw in logic. Any argument which looks like an attempt to find out what comes into existence first, either the seed or the fruit. Of course, in Sanskrit it's called bija angura. Bija means the seed, angura means the sprout. So if you sow the seed and if you pour water, depending upon the condition of the soil, a sprout comes into existence. Now, which of the two comes into existence first? Of course, when you talk about a sprout, you have to think about the tree that the sprout slowly grows into, and also of the fruits that grow in the tree, and also the seeds that are found inside the fruit. Without the fruit, there can be no seed. Without the seed, there can be no sprout. And without the sprout, there can be no tree. And without tree, there can be no fruit, which means without seed, there can be no fruit. So what comes first into existence? So this is called sadhya samahetu abhasam. I won't go into these details because these are some of the fundamental principles in ancient Indian logic. You have to think of an ancient logical system which had reached its present state of perfection almost by 1600 BC. So that is, the idea is this: suppose you want to prove something, you give an illustration, or you give a reason to prove something. But to show the logic or the rationale of that illustration, you have to give another illustration. The illustration itself is in need of a logical foundation. That's the idea behind. So it is called sadhya samahetu. I will come to that later. Now, here Gaudapada says, if some logicians argue that cause and effects and their relationship is like the relationship between the seed and its sprout, then you have to remember the logic of that illustration also stands in need of indication. That's the idea behind. Again, I want to draw your attention to the spiritual content of this argument. Gaudapada is here going on pushing, taking illustrations from different systems of ancient Indian philosophy, the ancient school of logicians and evolutionists, atomists, yoga philosophy, that's Patanjali yoga philosophy, and also the ancient school of ritualist Mimamsa philosophy and other systems of philosophy, plus illustrations from the four important schools of Buddhist philosophical system. The two schools of idealism, which some of you are familiar with here, the school of the doctrine of emptiness, which is called Shunyavada, and the doctrine of subjective idealism, which is called Vijnanavada, plus the two schools of realism, Sautranta and Vaibhashika. Gaudapada is here projecting all these various schools of Indian philosophy with one end in view. His supreme goal is to establish one single factor, that is, Atman, consciousness of the supreme, is the only supreme reality. That Atman is immanent, present in all beings. It is also the omnipresent reality. It is also the transcendental reality. It is eternal. It is changeless. It is never born, and therefore it never evolves. The common doctrine that this world originates from Atman, or Atman evolves into this world and different living beings living in this world, is wrong, because Atman never undergoes any change. Nothing takes birth from Atman. To prove this point, he is trying to reveal the logical fallacies of all other systems of philosophy. It is somewhat dialectical nature. I shall give a few examples. Gaudapada is, on the one hand, trying to prove the logical the logical perfection of non-dualistic system by trying to project its opposite. So the logical vindication of Vedanta is achieved by projecting its opposite systems of philosophy. Because the moment you believe the world really comes into existence, then you have to admit there are two entities in this world. Atman, or you may call him God, and the rest of his creation. Now, if there is a clear difference between God and his creation, if the divine spirit of God is not already present in living beings, we will have to seek our liberation outside of ourselves. We cannot turn inward. We have to look for liberation in the external world. Gaudapada says spiritual liberation is not to be found outside. Spiritual liberation can be achieved only when we look inward. And when we look inward, we don't reject the world. We are only trying to understand the true nature of the world of manifoldness, the world of names and forms, the world of change and conflicts and contradictions. So this world cannot be eternal because it is manifold, it is pluralistic, it is dualistic, it is subject to changes, it is full of conflicts and contradictions. So such a world is there around us. We are living in that world, but that world is only a relative entity. The moment we turn inward, when we go beyond our identity with body, mind, intellect, and all other non-Atman entities, when we really turn inward, then we find what we are seeking outside actually exists within ourselves. In fact, that's why you may have seen the picture of, maybe the most common picture that I can point out is the picture of Buddha or the picture of Vivekananda, the picture of Shankaracharya. You can see any of the ancient saints' pictures. Of course, here also, the picture of Jesus Christ, you see, the yogic posture. Now, where are they looking? Looking outward. They are not looking outward, they are looking inward. Because looking inward is concentrating within ourselves. For that, we have to keep our eyes close to the external world and turn our eyes inward. In the Gita, this introspection is clearly and graphically described. Samam kaya shirogrivam dharayan achalam sthiraka sampreksha nasigagram swam disascha anavalokayan. In the Gita, there is a verse, I shall explain this. Samam kaya shirogrivam. When you sit for meditation, your body, your neck, and also your head should be on one straight. And you should not be looking sideways. And sampreksha nasigagram swam disascha anavalokayan. If you read that verse in translation without a proper explanation, there is room for misunderstanding. It's a famous verse in the Gita, where the teacher of Gita gives a graphic description of the method of proper meditation. So one should sit straight with body, neck and head on a straight line. And then sampreksha nasigagram swam. Swam nasigagram sampreksha. This is the prose order. The meaning is one should be looking at the tip of one's nose. This is the literal translation. And you should not be looking sideways. Now, what's the meaning of, if you look at the pictures of these great spiritual saints in one meditative posture, you can really understand what Gaudapada implies. Because Gaudapada wants to tell you that the supreme reality of Atman is within us, not without. And to realize the supreme truth, we have to start our homeward journey, returning to our true nature, returning to our source. Now, the point is, one should look at the tip of one's nose. So, in the commentaries, in the traditional interpretations of this verse, the whole picture is clear, very scientifically explained. Why should one look at the tip of the nose? If you close the eyes, for a beginner in meditative practice, what you see will be total darkness. But you cannot keep your eyes wide open. If you keep your eyes wide open, then all the 5 senses of perception will drag the mind towards their different manifold objects. When we see a noise coming from the streets, our mind will be driven towards this vehicle which is the source of that noise. And if your eyes are open, then our eyes also will be dragged towards different visual objects. So that will be the cause of a very serious distraction. But you cannot fully close your eyes. If you close your eyes and try to meditate, especially the beginning stage, it is possible that you may fall asleep, or you may see within you total darkness. If you keep your eyes open, then the visual objects will drag the mind towards external objects. There will be no meditation. Both ways, it will be distraction. So you should not really close your eyes, but you should not open your eyes either. So, to effect this kind of concentration, the teacher of Gita says one should try to look as if you are looking at your nose. So Shankaracharya says, Pravakshan Niva. You should not be actually staring or looking at the tip of your nose. Then the tip of the nose will be the object of concentration or meditation. So Shankaracharya, by commenting on this commentary, says, see, Samprekshan Niva means as if you are looking at the tip of the nose. Should not be really looking at the tip of the nose. So that's the only way for one to remain wide awake at the same time without completely closing the eyes. So the point is, now this is the process of looking inward. This is explained in Patanjali Yoga Sutra and different other books in a much more serious language of explained. So Gaudapada's point is, any doctrine or any theory that tells us that our spiritual destination is outside of us, somewhere sitting, taking rest in a higher region, and we are standing below, pleading for some grace or whatever it is. This view is not rejected, but this is not the highest philosophical view. So Gaudapada says, the divine destination, the divine principle, liberation or the supreme goal is already within us. And this realization is possible only by turning our attention inward through introspection. For that, we have to go beyond our identification with body, mind, intellect, and so on, and turning our attention inward, we find that within us all, that divine principle is immanent, inherent, this idea behind. So today we started a bit late. So anyway, there are a few verses which are more or less repetitions. Gaudapada goes on attacking all theories of distinction and duality and plurality, just to establish his doctrine of Advaita, which tells us that creation, existence is one, and we are all rightful inheritors of the spiritual wealth, spiritual goal. That's his theory. Om Shanti.